Okay, replacing the fuel pump. This whole thing is a fuel sending unit. This is the fuel pump. Fuel sending unit is a lot more money. This one's a real budget build. So all we're gonna do is swap in the pump, redo the wiring, use our old existing sending unit, because there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't leak, it's not broken. This little thing for the gauge, I don't think it works. I looked at the other one I have. I think it works better than this one, but it's kind of welded to this sending unit, so it's all one piece. I could try to use this one, but this one looks a little bit more hacked up and bent. So I'm gonna not bother with that. I'm okay with having a gas gauge that doesn't work on this thing. Again, budget build, not a big deal. So here is the part number that I got from AutoZone. That's what I'm using. I think this is for a big block 7.4 liter, so it may have a higher PSI. It may not. I don't exactly know, but we'll see if the TBI needs it or not. So I'll show you how I swap all this stuff over. Really, your main concern is just the wiring and this little tube here of hose clamped on rubber tube. You gotta swap out the pump here. I do have a new sock for it, but gray is the actual power, black is obviously the ground. You can bridge that into another ground, or you can send it to its own ground anywhere else. Doesn't really matter. Here's where the electrical connections are. Instead of using shrink wrap, somebody used rubber tubing and zip ties. Fine, not a big deal. So we're gonna get in and take this thing apart, and I'll put in the new pump, attach it to the filler neck, and then do the wiring with the new sock, and then we'll drop it in and clean out the lines. Here is the rebuilt fuel sending unit, new pump, hose clamped in. Here's all the wiring. It is soldered, electric taped, and then zip tied to that line. Got a new gasket here, still got that hanging out there. Here's the ground wire. Here is the stock harness for the truck. Now I just grabbed a 5 gallons of gas, so I'm gonna throw that in the truck. Just take a look before I put in the fuel pump, because I want to see, you know, how much 5 gallons gets me, if it fills up the bottom at all. If I want to make sure that the little filter is in fuel, so it's sucking something up. And then we'll hook it. Then we'll clean up the lines, hook it back up, and probably check to make sure we have power coming from the ECM to the actual fuel pump, because I don't think we're getting power there, but that's where we're at. So fuel pump is in. I believe we were in gas, so 5 gallons was enough. Should be. Now, most of these older style fuel pumps, fuel sending units, go in the same way. It's this steel retaining clip, which is this guy that runs all along here. This one, this outer piece, is part of the gas tank, or yeah, it's part of the gas tank. It's welded on there. And then there's a gasket underneath this guy in between the top of the gas tank for the hole that helps seal it up so it doesn't leak. Now, this little guy right here, I keep dripping sweat on the camera. Gotta wipe that off. It's like 100 degrees out here. So all you do is you get it lined up with these grooves so it can drop in there around these guys, because there's slots in it, and then you drop this metal retaining clip or circle, you drop it in there, and you can see it's got this beveled edge. So you take a screwdriver, or some people say use brass so you don't make sparks, as long as you don't hit anything too crazy. I don't think you're going to light anything on fire. And then you got these tabs here that you set it under, and then you tap the back of the screwdriver with a hammer, and it'll slowly rotate it clockwise, and it will slide it underneath the tabs of this retaining circle here. So that's the little metal part that you got to knock lefty loosey and righty tighty to get it out. There's the tab, and it just gets shoved underneath this. I've gone about that far. This beveled edge was over here when I started, and then as I tap it, it starts to move and go underneath these clips, and now it's held in there, and there's all my wiring. So I'll hook all this back up, hook all the plumbing back up, and then finish cleaning out the lines before I send some fuel through it, and make sure that fuel is clear before I actually hook up the fuel filter and try to send it to the TBI. Alright, this is kind of neat. I want to show you guys this. I already did it, and so I'm blowing out, this is my plan for clogging these lines. This was just one of the fuel lines I pulled out of the truck. I put my mouth up to it and I could not blow. Ugh. Still stuff coming out. I couldn't blow through at all. It was completely clogged. So I decided to shoot some compressed air through it. I think I've got 40 PSI right now. So I'm gonna shoot some more through it, see if you guys can see anything come out. A lot already came out. But then I'm going to try to blow out the rest of the lines. I am gonna pour water through this line to see if, after I blow it out a bunch, if it's still got a bunch of rust and crud coming out. Then I've got some little like long cleaners that I can shove down in here, but it would not be able to get through the entire fuel line system. If it still looks pretty cruddy, I've got additional fuel lines. I have ones from a junkyard I can plug in. They're not the right year, make, and model, but I think they'll work well enough, so I'll replace those if I have to. Now let's see. You can see that. Ooh. So there was a big pop initially, not as cool as the first time around, but you get the idea of what I'm doing here. Both ways. Now let's do a little bit of water through it and let's see how clean it is on the inside. I don't think it's going to be that clean. Okay, I think that worked fairly well. I took this thing to the bathtub and dumped it into, dumped water into here and out the other side, and a little tiny bit of flakes came out initially, but that was it. Not too bad. Nothing that I'm really concerned about. I will replace the fuel filter at some point if I can get this, after I get this thing running for a bit, use some seafoam, and then I'll grab a couple extra spare TBI injectors from the junkyard because they're not that expensive. So once I clog all that stuff up a couple times, I should be able to get most of this stuff out of the lines and clear. So we should be good to go from that point on. So I'll keep blowing out the rest of the lines now.